January 29, 1991, 9:30 p.m. Saudi Arabia time. An Air Force E-8 Joint STARS surveillance aircraft picks up massive Iraqi vehicle movement in southern Kuwait. Tanks, armored personnel carriers, artillery, entire divisions on the move, heading south toward the Saudi border. After 12 days of relentless coalition airstrikes, Saddam Hussein is done waiting. He's launching his mother of all battles, a spoiling attack designed to drag coalition forces into a ground war before they're ready. The target, Khafji, a small Saudi coastal town evacuated since August, sitting 7 miles south of the Kuwaiti border. 2 Iraqi divisions, the 5th Mechanized and 3rd Armored, are rolling toward it with hundreds of vehicles. If they succeed, Saddam gets his propaganda victory. Proof that Iraqi forces can fight. Proof that coalition airpower isn't invincible. Within hours, A-10 Warthogs are orbiting over the battlefield. And for the next 72 hours, they're going to fly 846 sorties, more than any other coalition aircraft, proving that the ugly plane the Air Force tried to kill was exactly what ground forces needed. This is the story of how the A-10 saved the Battle of Khafji and became a legend. The Iraqi offensive caught coalition commanders by surprise, not because they weren't watching. The brand new Joint STARS radar plane saw everything, but because coalition intelligence was focused elsewhere, hunting Scud launchers in western Iraq, tracking Republican Guard divisions further north, supporting the massive redeployment of 2 U.S. Army Corps for the upcoming ground offensive. Nobody expected Saddam to actually attack. The Iraqis hit observation post 4 first, a screening position manned by U.S. Marines with light armored vehicles. The Iraqi 6th Armored Brigade, a full brigade against a Marine company, rolled south expecting to brush them aside. Instead, the Marines called in A-10s. The Warthogs arrived low and slow, exactly the profile Air Force leadership had spent years claiming would get them killed. Iraqi anti-aircraft fire lit up the night sky. The A-10s flew through it. Marine tow missiles and A-10 30mm cannons shredded the Iraqi advance. The brigade stalled. But other Iraqi columns kept coming. By midnight on January 30th, Iraqi forces had occupied Khafji itself. Saddam immediately declared victory on Iraqi radio. They had expelled Americans from Arab territory. He had no idea what was about to hit him. General Norman Schwarzkopf refused to play Saddam's game. When Saudi commanders asked for an immediate U.S. counterattack, Schwarzkopf said no. The Saudis would retake their own city, but they'd do it with overwhelming coalition air support. The plan was elegant. Qatari forces would block Iraqi reinforcements from the south. Coalition aircraft would isolate the battlefield from the north, destroying any Iraqi units trying to reinforce Khafji. Saudi National Guard battalions, supported by U.S. Marine artillery and forward air controllers, would clear the city building by building. And circling overhead, in continuous relays, would be A-10 Warthogs. For 48 straight hours, A-10s provided constant close air support. The moment Saudi or Qatari forces identified an Iraqi position, a tank, an armored personnel carrier, a dug-in machine gun nest, A-10s rolled in. 30mm depleted uranium rounds from the GAU-8 Avenger cannon, AGM-65 Maverick missiles, 500-pound bombs. One Iraqi soldier, a veteran of 8 years fighting Iran, later said that coalition airpower had inflicted more punishment on his brigade in 30 minutes at Khafji than he'd endured in 8 years of war against the Iranians. The A-10s flew low enough that Iraqi troops could see them, hear them, that distinctive BRRRT of the 7-barrel cannon that would become the Warthog's signature sound. It was psychological warfare as much as firepower. Every time an A-10 appeared, Iraqi units knew what was coming. The A-10's performance at Khafji wasn't an accident. It was exactly what the aircraft had been designed for, and what the Air Force had spent years claiming was obsolete. The A-10 Thunderbolt II, officially named after the P-47 fighter bomber of World War II, but universally called the Warthog for its blunt, ungainly appearance, was built in the 1970s as a Cold War tank killer. The entire aircraft is designed around its primary weapon, the GA-U-8 Avenger, a 30mm cannon so large the plane is literally built around it. 7 rotating barrels, depleted uranium rounds that can punch through tank armor. A rate of fire of 65 rounds per second. The Air Force never loved the A-10, too slow, too ugly, too specialized. When the Cold War ended without a massive Soviet tank invasion of Western Europe, Air Force leadership tried multiple times to retire the Warthog fleet. They wanted fast, multi-role fighters, the F-16, the F-15E Strike Eagle, anything but the lumbering, single-mission A-10. But the Army loved it, because the A-10 had capabilities no fast mover could match. It could loiter over the battlefield for hours. It could operate from short, rough airstrips close to the front lines. Its titanium armor bathtub protected the pilot from ground fire. Its redundant systems meant it could take hits and keep flying. And it was slow enough that pilots could actually see what they were shooting at, critical for close air support when friendly forces are danger close. At Khafji, every one of those features mattered. By the morning of February 1st, Saudi forces were advancing through Khafji with minimal resistance. Iraqi units that hadn't been destroyed were surrendering. The burnt-out hulks of Iraqi tanks, armored personnel carriers, and artillery pieces littered the streets and the approaches to the city. Coalition aircraft had destroyed approximately 600 Iraqi vehicles during the battle. 3 Iraqi brigades, the 6th Armored Brigade of the 3rd Armored Division, and 2 brigades of the 5th Mechanized Division, were effectively annihilated. Iraqi forces that had crossed into Saudi Arabia retreated in disarray back across the Kuwaiti border. The cost to coalition forces: 43 killed, 52 wounded. 11 U.S. Marines died in 2 separate friendly fire incidents. 14 U.S. airmen were killed when an AC-130 Spectre gunship was shot down. 2 U.S. soldiers were captured, but Khafji itself was retaken in less than 2 days. For the coalition, Khafji was a revelation. It demonstrated that airpower alone could stop and destroy division-sized mechanized forces without a major ground counterattack. Joint stars could identify enemy movements in real time. Strike aircraft could respond within minutes. Iraqi armor, advancing in the open or dug into defensive positions, had no answer. For the A-10, Khafji was validation. The plane the Air Force tried to kill had just flown more sorties than any other coalition aircraft over a 72-hour period, providing the close air support that made the Saudi-Qatari ground offensive possible. Lieutenant General Charles Horner, the Joint Force Air Component Commander during Desert Storm, said it plainly. Every time Iraqi vehicles began to march south, A-10s, FA-18s, or even the odd paved TAC F-111 or F-15E would show up, and all hell would break loose. But the A-10s showed up more than anyone else. 846 sorties, 72 hours, continuous presence over the battlefield. The Battle of Khafji set the template for the rest of Desert Storm. When the main ground offensive launched on February 24th, coalition forces already knew what to expect. Iraqi armor would be isolated by air power, pounded into submission, and destroyed before ground forces even made contact. The 100-hour ground war wasn't a fight. It was a mopping-up operation after 5 weeks of air dominance. And the A-10 Warthog, the ugly plane nobody wanted, racked up the most impressive kill statistics of the entire war. 900 Iraqi tanks destroyed, 2,000 other military vehicles, 1,200 artillery pieces, numbers that validated every argument the Army had made for keeping the Warthog in service. The Air Force still tried to retire the A-10 multiple times after Desert Storm. Congress kept blocking them. Soldiers who'd fought under A-10 cover lobbied to keep it flying. The plane survived budget cuts, modernization plans, and every attempt to replace it with something faster and shinier. Today, the A-10 is still in service, still providing close air support, still flying that low, slow profile that terrifies enemy ground forces and comforts friendly troops. The Air Force plans to keep it flying until at least 2040. Because Khafji taught a lesson the Air Force couldn't ignore. When ground forces are in contact and need air support right now, they don't want a supersonic fighter that's already 10 miles past the target by the time the pilot sees it. They want the warthog. Low, slow, ugly, and absolutely lethal. If you served in Desert Storm or saw A-10s in action, share your stories in the comments. And subscribe to Gulf War Chronicles for more untold stories from the war. Until next time.